Blog Talk Radio.
Well, I'm very impressed that I actually made my own show on time today. It's a hell of a miracle, let me just say. So everybody, I'm back. Can you believe it? I've been gone for, it just occurred to me today, 2 months, I want to say, is my last radio show. Well, you all know because you all follow me, of course, that I had done my wonderful Art is Alive Film Festival in New York City, which I am proud and happy to report, according to what the tabloids say, a.k.a. my fans and followers. It was an amazing success. So yay me for about 30 seconds. No, yay filmmakers, yay actors, yay directors, yay everybody that was there. Absolute success. Super, super excited. Almost excited as I am to talk to this guy that's holding on the phone right now. So I won't keep him holding for too long. Let's just take care of some of the company business first before we put Phil on the line and start talking to him. Couple quick reminders in case you did not see my social media page on Facebook. Obviously, we've had to move Art is Alive Los Angeles to another date, which is not the worst thing in the world. And why? Because then I can film my own movie. Yay! Anyways, Art is Alive Film Festival Los Angeles will take place the weekend of November 10th to the 12th. That's being held at the Vins on Fairfax in Beverly Hills, which I've already posted said information. Sadly, I haven't been able to get Film for 808 to see things my way. So anybody that wants to submit, and just keep in mind 3 things we're looking for: music videos up to 10 minutes. I'm taking features and shorts up to 90 minutes. And then we are doing God, it's a long day. I can't even remember. Features, shorts, music videos, TV pilots up to 60 minutes. Any of those, $30 across the board. Go to artisalivefilmfestival.yolasite.com. I have set up a separate icon for the Los Angeles Film Festival. You can go ahead and submit directly through there. We have 3 judges this time, just as we did in New York City. Super excited. We have 2 celebrity events. We have live music this time. It's going to be great. I'm so excited. I can't even stand it. So please go ahead. Send your submissions in. I'm looking to try to screen 25 films in 3 days. So please help me out. Go ahead and do your submissions. Relative to 100 Looks of Love, am I still looking for actors? Always. Specifically, I'm looking for 2 more New York City actors, 3 more Wisconsin actors, all of which male. Please, anywhere from 25 to 55 years of age. If you're interested, CIN. 4251@gmail.com. Otherwise, Facebook page 100 Looks of Love. Cindy hasn't had time to set up the website yet, so we're not even going to look at that. In case you haven't looked at my TV network update, yes, Sin TV is coming. Is it coming in November? No, it's not. Is it coming in December? Yes, it is. So super excited about that. And don't forget, if you have any of the following and you wish to pitch me, please do so. That would be independent film, children's programming, if you have episodic television, if you have a talk show, if you have a product that you want to push, if you have a teaser trailer that you want to show, if you want any content that nobody else has seen in the entire world and you want them to be on Sin TV, again, CIN 4251@gmail.com. Go ahead, send all that information in. The last thing that I want to say really quickly, which is probably the most important thing that I'll say on my show besides how wonderful Phil is. September 10th, September 11th, back-to-back difficult days for most of us. First of all, obviously, today is World Suicide Prevention Day. And as I have publicly said many times before, 2-time survivor here. Very happy that I'm surviving and very happy that I am succeeding and not going back to that dark place. But many people are. So the only thing that I can say is I am a random stranger to millions of people out there. But if you're listening to this, or at least my 63,000, and you have anything or any issue or anything, call, text, Facebook, bug me, stalk me, I don't care. Do what you need to do. Speak up, say something, do something to save yourself and those that you love. I can't even begin to tell you how important and drastically fundamental that is. So that's number 1. And number 2, I just ask what I do every single year because, of course, half of my heart is always in New York City all year round, and especially tomorrow because some of my dearest friends are suffering already today and in great mourning, and I have lost loved ones and buried them. It's a day to remember. It's a day to have reverence, and most importantly, it should be a day of silence tomorrow morning in recognition for those lives lost. So please, please, please make sure that you keep honor of both of those things if you would. Okay, so now that I've said all I need to say, let's get this great guy on the phone and start talking to him. Phil?
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi. I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can totally hear you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure. I had to do like all of my, when you're the boss and you've been off the air, it occurred to me when I was out shopping earlier, I'm like, oh my God, I haven't been on air in 2 months. You're my first interview back after 2 months. So I'm a little rusty. Not bad though, but I'm a little rusty. I'm very happy to see you.
Yeah, no, I would
well,
say
I'm a
if this
little
is your rusty. I mean, when you're on, I mean, it's just, I mean, you're like on point. So, yeah.
I am 100% on point. I try to be, and obviously I had to take care of all of our business there because everybody listens in. We got to talk about the festival. We got to talk about my network. But you know what? I'm over talking about me. It takes like 4 minutes for me, and let me tell you, folks, it takes about 2 hours to talk about Phil because I got to spend 2 hours talking to Phil, and I didn't even cover everything. I'm like, oh my God, and I'm just as nervous now as I was when I first met him. He just didn't know that, but yes, I am nervous. But I'm in pajamas today. So this is cool. I'm in my pajamas in my kitchen right now. I was in a dress in front of him the other day. So this is much cooler for me. Much, much cooler. So we have a lot to talk about.
Lovely dress.
Was it really? That's what I hear. They tell me I got back to Milwaukee, and they're like, oh, my God, love the dress, love the look. They're like, he was so lucky. I'm like, him? I'm like, no, me. Thank you very much. It was very, very sweet. It was. It was very sweet. I thought
Thank
so.
you.
Okay, so we have a lot to talk about. So I tend to jump around on my show because most people don't have the good fortune that I did, which is I've met you already. So obviously they're just listening into you. So we need to talk about a bunch of different things. So first of all, I want to talk about you as a writer, and that's probably because I think that we talked about this, the hierarchy being actor first, then writer second, then the director third. Mm-hmm. I want you to first off start talking a bit about, we talk a lot on my show about writers that come on and are very discouraged, very frustrated, get rejected an awful lot. So talk a bit about your experiences when you first started out writing and how it led you to a point where eventually you went ahead and started writing and directing both.
Yeah, okay. Writing is hard. Writing's really hard, and not starting out as a writer but being an actor. First, I had to learn how to do it, and I would say the writing thing started when I had my theater company in Chicago. I was writing one acts and things. I wrote a little thesis, one act when I was in theater school. So it sort of started there, and I was always interested in it. But I think the writing was motivated by the lack of roles I wanted to get as an actor, the opportunities I wanted to get. So I just started writing parts that I would like to play. And so that's probably right around where it started. And of course, it was a long road. Because I had the good fortune of working while I was still in theater school. I had access to a lot of these, professional directors that would hire me, and I would do their movies and TV shows and things, and I would make friends with some of them. So I was able to send the stuff I was writing to them for their feedback and their notes, and that was really my biggest boot camp. Was simply that, just sending the stuff, again, not to just I want to say, family or friends that don't know anything, that'll just, anything you do, they love. I mean, sending it to people in the industry and asking them, to really tell me what they think. There was that, and then I had the good fortune of being able to call Nick Pileggi, who wrote Goodfellas and Casino. I had the good fortune of being able to call him a writing partner on a project that I've written that's in early stages of pre-production right now. And I learned so much from Nick Pileggi. Nick Pileggi taught me a ton. So I think it was just sort of that, it was a process, and it didn't come quickly, and it was exceptionally discouraging. And then, of course, once you get something written, then I think, the next step certainly is you want to get it made. You're not just writing it to then put on a shelf somewhere. I mean, you want the world to see what you went on in your head, and you put it down on paper. You want to see it get it made. So then that's the next sort of struggle. And I've been hired at least a few times and been paid money for my work. So it's that hopefully that answered the question.
It does. I guess my one question that I really want to tip on, because oftentimes we talk a lot about, like I talk a lot about writer's block and people get frustrated with that. But one of the biggest things that I find is that discouragement runs rampant, meaning that, somebody can write for years and years and years and they say, okay, I want to give up. So was there ever a point in time that you wanted to give up and say, you know what, screw this. I'm not going to write anymore. I'm an actor. I can act. I'm going to do this. And more importantly, if someone's listening to you right now, what would you tell them to hold on to so as not to just give up and throw the towel in right away?
Advice I ever got, and it was I went to a writer's symposium in Los Angeles years and years ago, and Paul Schrader was speaking. And someone sort of asked him the exact question you just asked me, and he said, be very, very specific about what you choose to write. He said, so don't write 39,000 screenplays. Or let's even just say, don't sit there and write 12 or 13 or 14. And he said, write 2 or 3 really, really good ones. Because he said what happens is that if you get told no twice, that hurts a lot less than being told no 20 times. And I think that that's really good advice. Just be very selective. And I think also write what you know. And everybody has something personal inside themselves that's very unique to them. And I think the more that you can write to your own uniqueness, the better off you are, as opposed to and of course I'm sort of more directing this to screenwriters than I am, I don't know the world of writing, novels or anything of or poetry, and that's not my thing. But so for screenwriters, the other thing would be don't say, well, I'm going to write Iron Man 7, and they're not going to hire you to write Iron Man 7. Just write what you really good advice also that I got was that if you make something that is unique and true to yourself, Hollywood will come find you. They don't want you to come find them. They'll come search you out. If you write that really unique, wonderful film that just blows up on the film festival circuit and becomes they'll find you. And I know that because when I wrote my little short film Wrestled, it went to Sundance. Mm-hmm. I wrote it for myself to just simply play a role I've always wanted to play. IFC bought it. It ran for 5 years, and I magically, one day, got a phone call. It's like, hey, this is so-and-so at the William Morris Agency. They keep track of this stuff. They're like little CIA agents. They will come find you. Just stick with what you're, stay independent, I would say, as long as you can. And then if you do have the fortune of being hired in a more mainstream fashion. But I think that's kind of how, at least that was my experience. And there might be other ways. But the discouragement thing is I was fortunate to have David Mamet. Speaking of great writers, I had him as a guest professor when I was in theater school. And although it wasn't a writing class, he sort of brought a lot of his experiences in. And he would say, if someone asked him about, being in this business, and he said, well, if you're ready for a life of constant disappointments, peppered with the greatest highs you'll ever feel in your entire life, then stay in this business because it's for you. I think ultimately it's tough. It's really, really hard. It's not easy. It's not an easy business to be in. You're told no a lot, and it's hard. And you have to be your own biggest fan to stick in it. And a lot of people, and the other thing is Paul Schrader said at this symposium, is that there's no such thing as an overnight success. And he said Hollywood does a really good job of pretending. And these agents make these machines. Jake Gyllenhaal, he didn't just come out of nowhere. He was with agents who made a career for that guy. They made it seem like he kind of came out of nowhere all of a sudden in the dark of the night, but he was around for a really long time, and they really molded him and made him into this. They're we're going to make you into this independent film kind of half the time studios start, they really like crafted that and made that and put that together, and able to call Danny DeVito a really good friend. And
Nice.
I remember one time talking to him about when he got his big break. His big break didn't come till he was like 42 or 43 years old. He did not get Taxi until he was like 42 or 43. And up to that point,
wow.
Talk about being told no. You're like 4.5 feet tall. I mean, what roles are out there for you? I mean, they made The Wizard of Oz a long time ago. I mean, there's like, you know what I mean? But he's stuck in it. I mean, he's stuck in it. Well, I mean, he's a friend, so I guess I can say that. He knows how tall. He knows how not tall he is. You don't have to tell him.
Oh my God. What great advice that was, though. God, and can't you just listen to him all day, folks? I'm like, seriously, one of the things I didn't tell you to your face, and hopefully you'll get this, folks, as you listen to this interview. He's a very intelligent speaker. I interview lots of people, but they speak all very differently. But you're a very serious, very intelligent speaker, in case no one has ever told you that.
Thank you.
You are.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you very much.
You have that voice, that very serious, intelligent-sounding thing. Okay, speaking of which, since you were on the bandwagon with the writing thing, and obviously you mentioned Russell, of course, the other thing that you also wrote and directed, which was Man in the Silo. Man in the Solo. I can't talk today. Okay, so talk a bit about, on the flip side of the fence, obviously, when you write and direct something, you're doing dual roles, and not everybody gets the opportunity to do that, period. So talk a bit about the challenges of doing both roles, and more importantly, out of the ones that you've written and directed, is there one that's kind of your swan song where you're like, I really, really favor this project? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Man in the Silo, I directed and wrote only. I did not put myself in that. But rest of the little short I did, Wrestled, even though it was only 15 minutes long. I mean, that one I wrote, directed. I mean, I guess I should say co-wrote, because I wrote it with my writing partner, Christopher Ellis. But doing all those things, it just means more work. I mean, that's really all it comes down to. You're just piling on more things. But I think it takes, it just takes a certain kind of person, I think, to do it, which is why not everyone is able to write and direct and act and things like that. I mean, I think that some people can't focus on multiple things, but I think you need a really good, for example, if you're going to direct and act, which many really wonderful actors have done, you need, I think, I don't know, from my experience, you just have to have a really good team around you. So when you do get in front of that camera, you can really let go to somebody else and then hop in front and just sort of like then just focus on that. At least that's how I work. Like if I'm going to hop in front of the camera and act, I need to make sure somebody else has my back and I know that they know what I'm looking for and when to cut and what, that kind of a thing. It is weird to act and then yell action and cut while you're like sitting with your acting, partner.
Right.
It is a little...
Oh, yeah.
It's a little weird.
I asked that for a specific reason, as a matter of fact, because obviously, of course, I'm doing my first film, and clearly, of course, I have not only written the synopsis and the outline, of course, but I'll be directing a portion of it. And so I've been thinking about that because I get a lot of advice. Like you ask one director, and they'll say to you, now, you've got to be the boss. You can't be their best friend. You got to walk in. You got to give direction. You got to be direct. And then you talk to other directors, and they're just like, you know what, blend in with everybody. Don't be afraid of this. Like everyone seems to have a sincere suggestion. So, of course, I thought, well, I'll pick your brain because you've been on a set and you've done that. And I think I'm just trying to figure out in my own mind, and to those that are listening in who are venturing into this whole thing, being the director and then being the writer, obviously as a writer you have a vision, and then normally you're handing that to a director and saying make it come true. Now you're doing dual responsibility, you know what I mean? You've written it, now your vision has to come true, you know what I mean? So I guess that's why I'm looking for that one thing that's pertinent when it comes down to the project.
No, that's it. Well, a thought that just came to mind is that I think you have to be willing to not be in love with everything you've done. So I guess what I would mean by that is that if you're going to sit down and write the script and then you're going to go direct it, you better write that script and then be able to take that writer's hat off and really look at it somehow, like from a real critical place to say, okay, now does this work. There was some good advice sort of a director mentor gave me years ago. He said there's the film that you write, film that you direct, and the film that you edit, and all three are different. And that's absolutely true. And any director friends that I've had would probably, whether they put those exact words to it or not, I think they would just inherently agree. I mean, nothing ever stays the same as on paper. So I think I would say that would be it. You need to just really not be in love with yourself as much, because writers write stuff and they're like, oh God, I love, they're in love with it. It's like actors are in love with their performances.
Sure.
And how can you be so self-reflective in a wonderful way to be able to say, this is terrible. Why did I write this? This doesn't work, and I need to make it better or whatever.
Well put. I like that. Good advice. Excellent advice. Yeah. I'm scared. And obviously I hear that a lot. And I'm sure most of the people that listen to my show are creatives anyway. So the first time we're doing something, obviously we're a little more nervous. So it kind of goes without saying. I'll proceed with caution. And I have a lot of great mentors around me. But I'm like, hey, I'm going to tap your brain because look at this. He's an actor, he's a writer, and he's a director. He's a three-way. I call you people creative chameleons. I get excited when people like you come on. I'm like, oh my God, he can do like all this stuff. And not only that, he is not bad looking either. I'm like, get that. So he's got the powerhouse, he's talented, and he's not ugly. Yeah.
You're
I
amazing.
wish I didn't have that problem.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just being honest. I'm keeping it real. And he does blush, believe it or not, because I almost thought I saw him blush when I saw him in person. And I'm like, an actor who blushes is a rarity. It is a rarity because I rarely ever get to see that. So I'm like, that's kind of badass. And the fact that he blushes is very cool. Speaking of very cool, here's another brag point.
Yeah.
Spring summer issue of Felix magazine. How cool is this? How many of us have been on the cover of a magazine? Well, I will be because I'm creating my own, but that's beside the point. This is awesome. I'm so excited. Tell us a little bit about that experience because most of us will never be on the cover of a magazine in terms of you being selected for Felix magazine. And, of course, let's talk a bit about Elaine Madsen and why, because most people listening will never get to meet her either. So let's talk about both.
Yes, being a cover boy is amazing. I don't have to wait in line anymore for anything. I'm kidding. I don't know. My life has not
cover
changed
boy.
by being on the cover of anything. So let's see here. How it came about is, I have a really amazing, wonderful publicist who you've been in touch with, Sammy Robbins, she's just the best. And Jag Entertainment, PR, and Joanne, and they're all just amazing over there. And they've worked very hard for me. And, so they're with High Outside, which we'll get to, obviously, but, with this new film out, there's stuff to promote. So they're working on that all the time. And I think with how Felix specifically came about was they were in touch with Elaine. And I think initially maybe it was just supposed to start as maybe a small little piece. And then she watched the movie, and she was the one who decided this is our cover story. And I owe Elaine a debt of gratitude for that. I mean, she really has been somebody who has really gotten behind me and my career and the film. And, for Elaine to do that, I am flattered because her two children are both some of my favorite actors. Her daughter is Virginia Madsen, and her son is Michael Madsen. And how do you only have? She has three kids. She has another daughter, but she's not in it. So it's like of the two kids who get into the entertainment business and become giant successes that are I think she's got good taste. So I'm flattered. I'm super flattered. She wanted to put me on the cover. Nick Holmes, who did the photo shoot for it, just insanely talented. I mean, it made me look like a rock star, and I'm very grateful to them for that because it takes people like that and like yourself along the way to say, hey, look pay attention to this person and their work, because everyone gets help along the way, and anybody who pretends that like they did it all on their own must be the ultimate narcissist, because it doesn't. That's not true. It never happens that way. I mean, there's always somebody who helps you. You know, so Elaine is just this powerhouse of a woman. She's like, I don't know her exact age, but I mean, she's like 80. And this woman operates like a 25-year-old. I mean, she has got crazy amounts of energy. And she's just wonderful and lovely. And, of course, I can see why Virginia is as amazing as she is. I mean, she's got her mother to thank for it. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. And you guys should check out it's obviously the spring/summer issue. He looks a little different on the front cover because he's bearded, whereas when I met the gentleman the other day, he was unbearded. So he actually has a very clean face at present. But nonetheless, very good article, very, very nicely done, and very good representation of you, I have to say. So I'm very impressed, of course. Well, you've read it, I'm sure you know. I want to talk a bit about
they did
television.
a good job.
Now, I know they did, really. I mean, seriously, I am impressed because I didn't know what to expect. And just so you folks know, I didn't even know what Felix magazine was until I was told that I was going to meet Phil. Literally, I was like, what? What is Felix magazine? I'm like, what is this? And so literally now I was able to discover this new periodical, which you guys should check out. It is fabulous. You will enjoy it. And I'm very, very intrigued.
And by the way, I would, because I'm not sure if you know this or not, but the magazine, this is even a better reason to read Felix and get involved in that magazine, because it supports a not-for-profit organization that basically provides like further education for women.
Really?
To, like, increase and make their lives better. Yeah, it's called the Aparicio Foundation. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So if you go on the Felix website, there's a link to that foundation on there. And so, like, all the proceeds and ads and all that stuff, it goes right back into this wonderful foundation that Elaine and her partner are behind. So, yeah, so it's even cooler when you see people doing, you know, all of the people who've done the covers before me, who are all insanely famous. That's all to support this. I mean, clearly, obviously, to entertain, but it's there to support this foundation. So it's pretty cool.
That is very, very cool, actually. Thank you so much for that, because I had no idea, to be honest with you. So you guys have to check that out. And, of course, I'll read the website off along with the 8,000 ways to find Phil at the end of the interview, along with how to find the movie, etc. So we'll touch on that, obviously. You and I talked a bit about this, but my listening audience doesn't know this. So clearly, of course, most of the time you're going to see Phil in film versus seeing him in television. He has done a stint on television. Some things you might recognize include Friends and Justified, of course. And I know you're less of a TV actor. However, question relative to television, because, again, a lot of people listening in are actors, of course, and it seems as though, and this is just maybe just New York versus L.A., because I know you're in L.A., I do notice oftentimes at New York, the trend there is that a lot of my actor friends are literally trolling to the television markets, you know what I mean, like Blue Buds and Gotham and all that jazz and stuff. They seem to favor television. So just tell folks a little bit about your experience, and again, if somebody's listening in and they're a newbie and they want to start on television, maybe talk a little bit about why you don't gravitate to it as much, because you're going to give them the film aspect, but give them your television side as well.
Well, yeah, television is its own game, and I guess if we're talking television, we're talking, well, when you say television to me, I'm thinking like, yeah, the major networks like the CBS and the ABC and the NBC and things of this nature. I don't think anyone considers anything HBO is doing TV. It's more like, you know, it's film. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're doing, I mean, these are films that they're making, these little mini movies. So I don't consider that. But, yeah, so if you're going to, the TV, so that TV world is its own game. And you can make a really great living at it. That's its own thing. But it comes with its own pecking order of stuff. I mean, you know, I think I have not necessarily been prolific or fortunate in the TV world, and that wasn't necessarily anything I chose. I never did enough of it, and that's part of it. It's like when they want to know, these people who make these very quick decisions people in on these shows, they look and they're like, well, they count. Like, well, how many guest spots have you done, and who was it for? I mean, they just, they're more like they just want to hire the people who other people have hired. I mean, if you're talking about, landing like series regular roles and things, that may be a little different. But I mean, for the most part, if you're gonna, I mean, it's a great place to start too. I mean, TV is a great place where you can, like if you're just starting out, go audition for that line on a TV show. The one line that they, go out for all that stuff, all the little co-star stuff. Book those parts because you get on set and you meet people, and that's certainly super, super important. But I think that's the cool thing about like being in New York or Chicago is that you can do these shows that are in town, and they're going to local hire everybody. And so that's a really good way to like build a reel for yourself and just to meet people and get experience.
Good.
So
experience.
It's a really good
that's
way.
one big thing.
I mean, for me, more than anything, I'm a little like, for me at this point, especially in my career, and I've told this to my agents and managers, it's like I'm not interested. I don't really care. I don't want to be on CSI New Orleans. I mean, I don't even know. They're in how many cities is CSI in now? I mean, there's like it's like every city has a CSI show. I'm not interested in any of that anymore. I find it extremely boring. I don't like watching the stuff. I don't think it's a very challenging work. I mean, again, got to make a living. Don't fault anyone for doing it. I just don't want to do it. And since I can make money writing and directing as well, I would rather just find it that way. I would like to try to mimic those friends of mine, only because I know them personally, and the way they went about it. Okay. Like Mike Shannon is a buddy of mine.
Right.
He never did any TV, and I think the one TV thing he did early on, he got like fired. So there's a guy who's had
really.
Yeah, he got well, I'll never forget. We did Peter Bogdanovich movie of the week. And I was like, it's probably like 20 or 21 or something like that. It was To Sir with Love 2 with Sidney Poitier.
Okay.
But it was for TV, and Bogdanovich was directing it. And I was cast, and then the script changed. So I never got to set. I still got paid, but I never got to set because my character went away. But Shannon had a couple of lines in there, and apparently Bogdanovich fired him right on set. I mean, I'm not talking out of school because I think he's told this story. I think like maybe on Letterman or something. But yeah, Bogdanovich fired him. He literally said these words to him: "You'll never work in Hollywood ever." Like he literally just thought he was like the worst, and now look at him.
Exactly.
So,
right.
He didn't do anything. That guy didn't follow that track, but he made his career exactly how he wanted. I don't know how he did it, but he just sort of like did the theater he wanted to do, played the roles on film he wanted to play. I mean, he's really kind of an enigma in that way. So, I mean, there's a lot of roads in, but, TV certainly is one way to do it.
Nice advice. Thank you. See what I mean? You're so intelligent. I'm like bowing. He's so intelligent, isn't he? I like that. I like having intelligent guests. Not that I don't. Now that's not to say I have stupid guests, but I'm like you're very captivating. Now his take on acting, which I find rather interesting because I interview actors quite a bit, and he's kind of a breath of fresh air, literally. For one, he lives and breathes this craft, and he does believe acting to be a craft, which I think is a very fundamental point to bring up because not all actors feel that way, and obviously they utilize different techniques, technologies, etc. One of the things that you pushed very heavy when we were sitting down and talking was You spend a great deal of time doing research before you go ahead and get into your role. And not only that, it takes a while for you to get into the performance, so much so. So if you would talk about that research point and why you feel it's so important, or would you say to fellow actors, I think it's fundamentally crucial for you to spend a great deal of time researching whomever or whatever you're going to play before you do it.
Yeah, we did talk about this when, the other day when we sat down and
right.
I know a lot of actors, and I think in a lot of ways it's something that I'll be very honest here, something I'm very insecure about, something I'm very intimidated about are those actors out there who can book those like TV guest spots, like snapping your fingers, they'll book like 12 or 13. They're able to go in the room and just nail it and be there and do it. And that was not me and was never me. I do take a long time to arrive at a performance, even if it's an audition performance. It just takes me a long time. And there are actors who are able to get there really, really quickly. And for me, it takes time with the character, getting to know the world, walking in that character's shoes as much as I'm allowed or given the opportunity to walk in their shoes. The time outside I was given, and this is a credit to Evald Johnson, the director, and his father. They gave me a lot of opportunities to really prepare and get there. But we don't all have that luxury. But if I can, I feel like I just want to get my hands on everything. I want to research it all and really get into that world, and then that helps me. It just gives me something to pull out of the toolbox. When they're saying action, and I'm thinking about, well, how do I make take 4 more interesting? Oh, there was this thing I remember from a year ago when I was researching. Oh, yeah, let's try this. Let's try, So I think, talking about, acting as a craft. I think I take it exceptionally seriously, and not in I don't mean that in let's say a high cotton way, or something where it's it's elitist, because it's not. Anybody that's willing to dedicate their time to it can do it, but you do have to dedicate time to it. I mean, this is not just something. And LA is prolific for lazy actors. I've never seen so many lazy actors in my life. New York actors are very hard workers. Chicago actors are very hard workers. But there's this sense in LA I don't even want this audition. And you're like, shut up. Are you out of your mind? Of course you want this audition. What are you talking about? I don't even care. I got to go meet my girlfriend for yoga. What? Get out of here. I'm just get out of here, dude. What's wrong with you?
Oh,
and
my God.
I have a picture of what this person looks like in my head. Oh,
my gosh.
Yeah, so I think so for me, it's how I was brought up. Being in Chicago, going to a theater conservatory, I was told, and I didn't come in that way. I mean, when I came in, I came out of playing sports. Nobody in my family was an artist. I didn't come from an artist family.
Right.
I went into a theater program with tons of kids from performing arts high schools, which I didn't even know existed. I'm like, what? A high school dedicated to performing arts? No clue. No idea. So when I came in, I did have that, I just want to be a famous movie star. I want to play Robert De Niro in Goodfellas. Well, you can do that, but that just doesn't get handed to you. That doesn't you have to earn that. And so I learned to take, I had a theater professor whom I butted heads with a lot. She's passed away recently, and I butted heads with her a lot, and I don't really see eye to eye with her. But I do thank her for one thing, which she told me in theater school. She goes, and I was kind of like a young, punky, theater student, with a big attitude, I'm sure, and so I don't blame her, but she told me, she goes, look, I do think you're going to work more in film and TV maybe than you will in theater, but she goes, but I want you to know the great works. I want you to know how to do Shakespeare. I want you to know how to do all the stuff.
Sure.
And I'm very thankful to her that she made me do that, because it's all, to me, it's all in it. It's all good to know. We're, as David Mamet said, without, now I'm getting a little nerdy here, but I think your audience will appreciate it. As Mamet's always like,
okay,
there's only like 5 stories, and it's all from the great works of the Greek tragedies. That's what we're borrowing from all the time. They did it first. That's where it starts. And when I started to learn these things, I was like, oh, okay, this is like really interesting. And then you start to understand it. It's a craft, and like any other job, you should learn how to do it right and do it your best, right? I think that's what everybody sort of wants to do. Yeah.
Agree.
Good job.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about
doing yoga. I gotta go do yoga with my classes. I don't even want to.
I'm just seeing the look on your face. You're just so honest about this. It's so cool. I'm like, oh my God.
I hate my agents at William Morris. They stink. Oh, really? You mean your agents at William Morris? Oh, okay, pal. Yeah, you got a hard life, buddy. Yeah, right.
See, I will give you guys this, because the people, you may not have listened to my show before, Phil. You probably haven't. People that have listened to me for years, because I'm going on, oh my God, now 7 years, 8 years almost. And all this time I've been doing it, I complain a lot about, like, people ask me to come to LA all the time, and I'm like, and I told you to your face, I think most people are either LA or New York. It's really hard to be bi-coastal, because I find that either people favor New York or they favor LA. Now, we all know that half of my heart is in New York, and of course I'm going to live there eventually. But I'm going to tell you guys right now, the other day when I met him, I'm like, you know what? Now I have my mojo to want to go to LA. I'm like, if everybody was like this guy, Phil, if they were like Phil, if more of you people there were like you, I'd go there more often. Because I'm like, I cringe when I'm like, oh my God, I have to go to LA. But this is what isn't he a great guy? I'm just saying Phil's a great guy again. Okay, enough of that. I'm going to stop calling you a good guy now. So now that we know he lives in LA, which, I'm sorry, you're such a bad person. You live in LA, obviously, currently, but I know that you grew up on the south side of Chicago, which is what brings you to the film here and the screening and all that good jazz and stuff. So when you make a transition, and obviously you didn't just transition yesterday from Chicago to LA, but, Midwestern life and LA living, just like Midwestern New York, it's very different. So tell me a bit about what appeals to you about living in LA versus having been in Chicago.
Well, nothing. I got to be honest. I'm not really excited about living in LA. I'll be honest with you. I'm not. I'm currently doing this interview in the backyard of, my parents' house, and it's really nice. I like coming back to Chicago because it reminds me of where I came from and who I am. As a person, LA is okay. Like, I finally love where I'm living. That's only been as of the last 4 years. But prior to that, moving all the time, and I never really felt at home. Another buddy of mine, great, wonderful actor, Joe Sikora, who is on the show Power. He's one of my best friends, and he lived in LA for a long time and really stomached it, but I don't think liked it at all. And he moved to New York. Not only did his career just blow up there, but he loves life so much more there in New York than he ever did in LA. So I think it depends. But if I could figure out how to live in Chicago and do what I need to do in LA, I think I would do it. I'm not a huge
really
fan of LA, and that's not to say it's a bad place to live. I'm not saying that. There's a lot of people who love it, and it's great. And it works for them. They love the ocean, and they love all that stuff. And, I'm more of like, I think, getting back to your original question, I grew up in a city, so it's like that's what I know in LA is the farthest thing from a city, and I don't care how much they talk about downtown LA. It's like 4 buildings. And, like, there's just nothing. There's, like 4 buildings an Irish pub that isn't an Irish pub with a happy hour that stinks. So I'm like, this is no city.
I just can't believe
the rest
this guy.
Of it's like,
oh my God.
The rest of it's like a giant strip mall. You know,
Well,
like, I remember meeting someone from Orange County. Well, I've met a lot of people from Orange County, but this one particular instance
me
is
too.
this person from Orange County I met, and
Okay.
she was like, she said to me, she was like, it was at some party, and I go, well, where are you from? And she goes, well, I'm from Orange County. I don't come into the city often, referring to L.A. And I'm like, what city? What are you talking? Like, there was such a disconnect. I was like, it was like an Abbott and Costello routine. I didn't know what she was talking about. She was trying to, and finally I was like, oh, do you mean you think Orange County is like the suburbs and LA is like the city? And she's like, yes. So I was just like, so that's, I think, just, you know, how things are different, the way I see things. You know, like I consider New York a city for sure. You know, New York is a city.
Agree.
I even look at Brooklyn as like, Brooklyn's burby. You know what I mean? Like I get that.
You think?
Like I get going out to I get going out to like Brooklyn Heights and you know Park Slope and stuff, and there's more room and it's cleaner and you know and it's I see it and I can get it because I understand that and there's a lot of similarities I think between Chicago and New York, although there are differences, but I think there's more in common. But I think there's more in common than that, especially when you're out in LA. I can gravitate very easily more toward probably someone from New York than I would as someone who grew up in LA, you know.
There you go. See, this is why we get along, folks, because he gravitates to that one side instead of what I call the dark side. Yeah, but I'm worried. LA is warming on me a little bit.
We have the Italian food thing in common.
Yeah, we do. We also have the suit. You know, in fact, Phil and I both like to cook. We would call each other actually pseudo-Italian. In fact, I've been told that I was literally inducted as an Italian in New York, which I thought was so funny. Now, what we don't have in common is, first of all, Phil wanted to play for the White Sox at one time, and get this, Phil actually thought about becoming a priest at one point. Now, this fascinates me because I've met you. So I'm like, I've always been curious about that. What makes anyone, or in particular in this case you, what made you want to consider that? Was there a particular reason? That's fascinating.
I think a lot of little boys want to grow up and be a sports player. You know, I've never been really into football or basketball, and then maybe it's just where I grew up near the Comiskey Park on the south side, but baseball was like what I lived and breathed growing up. That's kind of all I wanted to do. I didn't care about anything else. It was like baseball cards, watching baseball games, playing baseball with my friends at the park, playing in the leagues, and so that was just like, that's just all I wanted to do. And loved going to the games and meeting the players and getting the autographs and all of that. It was just,
wow.
I think that was it. And only the White Sox.
Well, and it intrigued me only because of the fact, how often do you meet people who talk like that and say, well, at one point in time I was going to be a clergy person. And I'm like, that's really weird. I just don't hear that very often. It's very unique and it's very different. And I have a great deal of respect. I'm a Catholic, so obviously. You're Irish, so I assume you were brought up Catholic too, right? Okay, so yeah. So you know what that is, obviously, the whole Catholic thing.
I was an altar boy, in fact. Yeah.
Get out of Dutch. Can you speak Latin too? Really?
No.
Seriously?
And now
don't get me excited.
I can't. No, I cannot speak Latin. Does that kind of knock me down a few notches on the intelligence chart for me today, or no?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
Okay,
no,
wonderful.
My dad is like Roman Catholic, and he was an altar boy too, and they spoke Latin back in the day and all that good jazz and stuff. Because I remember that. But I do want to ask you, since you are an Irishman. I am a wee bit Irish, but I'm more Scottish. So if you and I were drinking in a bar right now, who's out drinking the other? Because us Irish people can hold our liquor. Just saying.
Yeah, we sure can. I heard once a study. I think it's like the Irish and Native Americans. They can really hold their liquor, and that's also an interesting way to put it. Holding your liquor. Just what we all really need is being able to drink a whole ton and not fall down
Or puke.
on our faces.
Yeah, like getting
puke.
ill.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting ill is not pretty either. I'm like, I don't want to like do that or whatever. Yeah, I was thinking about that because I'm like, oh, he's Irish, and I'm like, because I'm a wino, so I like my wine, but I'm like, it takes a lot to get a drunk off of wine. Now the hard alcohol and that stuff. Do you drink whiskey like the traditional Irish person?
Yeah, more.
It's usually whiskey, right, or Scotch.
Mine's more bourbon. I do bourbon. I love bourbon. So that's more my thing. Tequila. I really love tequila like I like wine.
Rough.
But there's a lot of similarities. I can't do the silver tequila. I do like the Reposado, the Añejos, like this stuff that's got some color to it. But mainly bourbon. I could, whiskey's good. I've got a friend who's really into whiskey, and he's got a lot of money, so he's always like having me taste and inviting me out to these. Oh, we got a good whiskey over at this happy hour, and so I'm learning about it. But it would be, if I had to choose, I would say I would go bourbon. Bourbon.
Okay. Bourbon. Yeah, I don't drink a lot of that. Once in a great while, I'm like, okay. So the real bonus question is, so when you're on set, and you, like in this case, you were obviously drinking in the course of this. So how does that work? Because I'm not an actor. So basically, that's not legal, right? So it isn't, you can't actually have alcohol on set, or can you? Good question. I don't know. I should know this, but I don't think I do.
Boy, that's a good question. I don't know.
Thank you.
I'm not really sure, but a lot of actors have done it. I mean, Harvey Keitel, Bad Lieutenant. I mean, it wasn't like, I think he was pretty open about it. I mean, he did drink.
Really?
He did do some drugs. And,
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure how that worked, because I'm like, if you're, right, because I mean, obviously, if you're on the set and you're doing this and you want to look like you're doing this, et cetera, like in your particular case, because we're watching him, and I don't want to give the whole movie away, but obviously there's a scene, this seems to be a very elongated scene with him going to the bar, et cetera. You can obviously see that he's getting more and more and more and more and more and more inebriated, and I'm like, I marvel oftentimes how a good actor can really make you believe that you're three sheets to the wind, even though perfectly cognizant,
right,
etc. Well, Dean Martin comes to mind, because people used to think that he drank all the time, but in reality, did you know he wasn't drinking? Not
right.
everyone knows
that.
It's
part of his act.
Fun fact there.
Part of his act.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
That's exactly right. There you go. And, of course, another fun fact, because you got to tell the Pacino story, because I love Al Pacino. I love you, Al, if you're listening, which you're probably not, but maybe you are. I don't know. Maybe you are listening, and I'm right here. Anyway, tell us about Al Pacino. Tell us about your play. Tell us about meeting Al Pacino. Fabulous story.
Well, I love Al Pacino, too. Al Pacino is one of the greatest. Well, when I we talked about this, I remember when we met last week, you asked me about studying, and do I still take acting classes and things like that. Well, one of the guys that I study with when he comes to L.A. is a guy named Jack Walter, and he's Al Pacino's like mentor. He's like his teacher, or at least one of them. And Jack's really old. Jack was like in the original Broadway production of 12 Angry Men. That's how old this guy is, and he's still teaching. And I remember when I took his class for the first time, I had to interview with him, and he asked me who my favorite actors were, and I mentioned Al, and he goes, well, now you're talking about one of the greatest that's ever lived. And I really, I love Al Pacino so much. So, yeah, when I met him years earlier, I was like 19 or 20 or something. It was pretty cool. Yeah, I wrote this. I had to write I didn't have to, but I had to direct at least a one-act play for a thesis production so I could graduate. And I decided I would write something as opposed to just picking something. So and they said I could. So I wrote this play called Al Pacino, a takeoff of the title Author, the movie he did. Right. And I'm sure it was not a very good play. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was not a good play. And but I had a mentor friend who was a teacher at the university, and long story short, he was able to arrange a meeting with me and Al, and I met Al at his hotel, and I got to sit down with him just for a little tiny bit and give him the play, and it was really quite interesting, and he gave a good piece of acting advice to me that day that I will never forget. And by the way, just like the nicest, sweetest, just and like really a kind of like a goofball. But like when I think of Al Pacino, I think of a really happy guy with like a giant smile. Like that's who I think of, because he's very light. He's a very light guy, you know, and loves actors and loves being an actor. So I'm like, you know, about that, and I don't think I had done any film work yet. And he just said, he goes, with film specifically, he just said, I'm not afraid to try something completely different on every take and make a fool of myself. And he said that specifically. I'm not afraid to make a fool of myself, you know, and I've never forgotten that as advice. You know, so he'll do a take, and he's willing to do that. He's willing to make a complete fool of himself, which I think is why, you know, he has these moments in films where you're like, that's definitively Al Pacino, because only a guy like that,
right,
and, you know, is able to make a choice like that because he's daring enough. You know, you're always going to get you always know you're going to get something interesting when you watch Al, you know.
Oh, always.
So yeah, that was my
Absolutely.
experience meeting him. It was pretty cool. It was super, super cool. And I gave him a copy of the play. I remember him staring at the front of the cover, and he was just like kind of smiling and chuckled, you know. And after I was done, I ran back to school. After that to go to rehearsal that night for Al Pacino. Al Pacino was like, I met Al Pacino, and everyone was like flipping out. You know, everyone was like cheering and high-fiving me. I was so excited. So yeah,
that is so cool. That is cool, because in fact,
cool.
when I researched Phil and I found out that he had done this whole Pacino thing, the first thing that popped into my head was that Twin movie. You know, the one that Adam Sandler did, where they have Al Pacino and they want to do the Dunkachino, where they do a spits on his name or whatever have you. Exact same thing crossed through my head when you did that. I was like, remember that whole thing? In fact, that was Jack and Jill. That was just on the other day, as a matter of fact. So speaking of influences, because we talked about this, and I think this is a pertinent question to ask. You have a few people that have influenced you, obviously. Of course, there's an Al Pacino. You speak a great deal about Robert De Niro, but who is not in love with Robert De Niro in any manner, shape, or form? I don't even know.
Sure.
Obviously, Martin Scorsese as well as Spike Lee, because you had.
By the way, I'll tell you who was never in love with Robert De Niro, if you want to know. Stella Adler.
Donald Trump?
The great Stella Adler. Yeah.
What?
She was like So a friend of mine, and actually this is how I know Danny, is I know his producing partner John Albo, and he had dinner with Stella. This is at some point in the like 80s, and they were talking about, I don't know how they got on the subject, and somehow De Niro's name came up, and she goes, I don't really know much about him at all. I'm not sure. I don't really know what to make of him. Like, she just was like breathless, like, Al Pacino, I love Al Pacino. But when they brought up De Niro, she's like, I'm not really too familiar with him or anything. I don't really know what he's about or something like that. I was like,
so
what?
Wild. Oh, my God.
Anyway.
That is so wild.
Sorry.
Oh, my goodness. No, that's okay. I had brought up, obviously, of course, I knew Martin Scorsese was an influence of yours, and we, of course, talked about Spike Lee as far as that he was the person who said, you know, or made you believe that you can use a film to make an actual statement, using film to make a statement. So my question to you is does High and Outside do just that? Is it a film that actually makes a statement, in your opinion?
You broke up there for 1 second. So High and Outside does it what?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's okay. Can you hear me now? Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, so the question is, obviously, of course, as you mentioned, Spike Lee gave you the impression that you can use film to make a statement. He left that influence on you. So my question was, do you believe High and Outside does make a statement of some sort, in your opinion?
Yeah, no, I absolutely do. High and Outside is a film that I'm super, super proud of as an artist. It's probably my finest work, at least on film, for sure on film. So, and that's, again, a credit to, that's really a credit to the director, Evald Johnson. I mean, he was really able to, allow me that space to deliver that. So I would say, Hide Outside, I think, makes a lot of different artistic statements, for sure. One of which is that you can actually make something really, really good outside of, independently outside of the studio system. I think that's like one of its biggest statements that it makes.
It does. It makes a bunch of different statements, actually. And we'll find that out, of course, when the review comes out, which, from what I hear, word on the street is, so is the review going to come out this week? Am I going to be reading my review this week? I'm just curious. Am I going to do that out in public?
That's a part of what I'm going to be working on today. Once we're off the phone, I need to.
I'm sorry. Okay, I just want to throw that out there because I don't want to say to my audience, hey, listen, because obviously I'm not going to read it on air today, which kind of sucks. Which means, guess what? Get off your butts and go to Chicago and see the damn movie, and then you can actually hear my review. But if you can't really do that because you're like in Australia right now and you're listening, that's going to be a problem. But just as a heads up, folks, on a side note as to his review, and, of course, in case those of you don't know, I'm going to be doing a feature article on him as well. The feature article will be done later this month. Why? Because, I have to do the review first, which is now done, and I hopefully will be able to read it in a public setting when I go to the screening this week. And, of course, I will go ahead and make sure I post it up on social media, and it's being put in 4 or 5 publications. I can't even remember how many I write for anymore. That's probably bad, right? No, that's good, right? The more publications, the better. Of course. Really. That's kind of what we're thinking at this point. Okay, so now that you brought us to the film, so I have a bunch of questions about High and Outside, because if it wasn't for High and Outside, I wouldn't even know you right now. So, so that's a big thing. And before I forget, now that I start asking these questions, huge thank you before I forget to mention Samantha. So Samantha of JAG Entertainment, without you, I would not have this fine actor and fine person in my life, as a matter of fact, because we all work in this very large PR group together, and she put this lovely post together, and she said, hey, we've got this guy, he's on the cover of this magazine, and I read the synopsis about this baseball movie, and that was it. I mean, I won't lie to you. I mean, the guy on the cover was all right looking, and I'm like, he's probably a nice guy. Yeah. And then what a pleasant surprise. I show up, and he's just darling. He really is just darling. I don't even know what other word to use besides that. So I was very pleasantly surprised. Most actors are very full of themselves and very they are very much of the mindset of, what, you don't know who I am? You haven't seen my work? And I'm like, okay, so hopefully I've left a good influence on said actor. I tried very hard. So we'll see what you think of the review in the article. But so High and Outside. Question number 1, which I find fascinating. To those of you that have not seen the movie, at some point in time in there, Phil does, of course, get on a motorcycle and ride in this very intense scene, which I won't give away again. But what was really super cool to find out was he got his license for the film, so he wasn't riding before then, actually. So obviously, of course, that's a new experience for you, getting your motorcycle license and riding around, of course. So I know that you ride a Harley Sportster, but in the film, what are you riding in the film? That was just a curiosity question. I'm like, what is he riding? And not only that.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, that's all right. I was going to say, I was curious on what you rode, but more importantly to those that don't ride, obviously, and don't do movies. So in this particular case, here you are on a set and you're riding a motorcycle. Were there injuries? I mean, did you harm yourself? I mean, how many takes does it take? Because I imagine that's not something you get right away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I've got a good one. Hopefully the director's listening. If not, I'm sure he'll be listening to it once this is posted up in the archives. But the answer is yes. I did injure myself. And I did crash the bike. So, yeah. Well, here's how it happened. We can only obviously laugh about it because, there was no real damage done. But so the director bought a brand new bike it was his personal bike. And he was like, this is the one that I want to use in the movie. And he bought it. And I'm thinking this thing was like a week or 2 old. I had already had my motorcycle license. I was riding some other bikes here and there. And what we were doing was, because the director belongs to a motorcycle club out in L.A., and so I would hang around the club a lot, lot of guys that I'm actually friends with now, and would ride the bike and pretty much just get made fun of the whole time. They would just razz me, you know, and stuff like that. But it was really the director, because the director's he brought that aspect into the movie because that's kind of a part of who he is. So he gets this new bike. It's like a week old. And at this point, I'm thinking, like, I got this. I'm so good at riding a motorcycle. It's ridiculous. So I'm at his house. I take the bike out. I'm riding it all over Burbank, and mainly the route that we're going to ride in the movie he's having me do. And I'm doing it, and I'm fine. And I'm like, I'm feeling like a pro. And I pull into, I sort of make this roundabout, and I'm just like, and I'm basically like, I'm in like first gear, and I noticed that there's like some people kind of looking that are outside their house, and they see me pull up on the bike, and I'm kind of like hot dogging it a little bit, and
oh boy,
I hit I thought it was the brake, and I hit the gas, and the bike flew out from under me.
Oh my God!
He said I caught some good air, and thankfully I still had the helmet on. I flew off the bike. I landed on my back. The bike flew forward into his neighbor's van and smashed into his neighbor's van. I got up and I ran in his house, and I hid behind his wife, and I'm like, she's gonna kill me. You have to save me. She's gonna murder me.
Oh my God!
It was like a week old, and I completely smashed it. He was so sad. I don't even think he could bring himself to murder me. He was so sad. I felt really bad about it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
Really,
my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it was fun.
Now I'm not going to look at that scene. Those scenes will make me think differently now, because I'm like, oh my God, I would be devastated, because I ride as well. I mean, I'm a backseat rider, but I'm like, my God, I'd be devastated if that was my bike.
Right.
Goodness gracious. Now, speaking of the director, you had mentioned that he reminds you of Nick Cassavetes, which I think is interesting, because he has this, I'm going to guess he takes a lot from European filmmaking, clearly, and I don't get to deal with a lot of those folks. So tell me, did he approach you, or did you approach him about the film, or how did that whole casting process actually occur?
Yeah, he approached me about the movie. He saw Jeffrey and I in a play in L.A., a Sam Shepard play called Fool for Love, and Jeff's wife made a comment in front of us all. We were at like a rap party thing, and she said, she pointed to Jeff and I, and she said, you two should play father and son in the film because you have the same eyes. You know, Ewald was present for that comment, and I think that sparked something in him, because like a little while later, he sent me a text, and he said, I've got an idea for you and Jeff for a movie. And that's how it kind of came about. So that was pretty fortunate. Yeah, I mean,
I imagine so.
A lot of actors don't get that opportunity to have someone like sort of craft a movie around them and around their co-star. So that was pretty cool. That's how it came about. And yeah, Ewald's a really wonderful director, say in a lot of ways, like, you know, and it's hard because you say these things and it's like they seem like too big of a compliment, but I feel like it's true. Like Ewald's up there with like Hitchcock. I mean, he'll be known certainly in years to come, but he's like a great director in that way. He's not a guy you would look at and think is a film director. He's got tats all over him. He's got a big, giant, crazy beard, you know, and looks like a bike guy, you know, a club guy, you know, and so you wouldn't necessarily look at him and think film director, but he is. He knows European cinema. He knows Japanese cinema really well, and these were all influences in this movie. I mean, he's really making a very European-American film, you know, and that's all in there. And the reason why I sort of liken him to like a Hitchcock is because Hitchcock was so known for just like hiring people and then stepping out of the way. He didn't say a whole lot except for action and cut on set. And that was Evolved very much in the same way. He didn't really talk a whole lot. He would just say good and move on. And, you know, he would pay compliments when they were needed, but he didn't, like, go out of his way. It wasn't a big talker, you know, like a lot of directors can be. A lot of directors talk a lot. You know, some of the actors on set were really even kind of, like, concerned, like, I'm not hearing anything from the director. Is this good? And he's like, yeah, I would tell you otherwise. You know? So, yeah, and Nick Cassavetes, I know, was a guy like that, you know, as well. Like, it's just wearing a leather jacket, riding a bike, and all that other stuff.
Reminds me of Kurt Sutter, actually. Well, you know who Kurt Sutter is, obviously. So he's almost like the Kurt Sutter of filmmaking in a way, because, you know, Kurt's all like that. Oh, that's awesome. I would love to meet this guy. See, no, I'm not going to get to meet him, am I? The director is not present for the 12th, correct? Just clarifying.
No, but if you come out to L.A., I'll arrange it.
That would be awesome, just because I'd love to be able to say to him, hey, you know what, I saw your work, da-da-da-da. And that's absolutely awesome, as a matter of fact. Fun fact, he weighed 200 pounds, according to him, had to put on a significant amount of weight gain for this film, because that's one of the things that I tried to very tactfully ask him, because I'm like, if you meet Phil in person, obviously he's a guy that's in shape, and then I'm like, watching the movie, and I'm like, yeah, Phil's looking a little bit bigger in that film, and I'm like, how do I nicely say, did you put a little fat on for that film? But he was very gracious about it and explained to me that he put on this weight for the film. It took almost a year, apparently, to lose said weight, actually. So talk a bit about, to the folks, of course, who have not met you and did not know this, the process in terms of how you put all that weight on, et cetera. And, of course, does that take a toll on you? I mean, do physical changes ever take a mental toll on actors? I'm curious about that.
I think so. I mean, it did on me, so I'm assuming it would for any other actor. I mean, I think the one that people talk about a lot is speaking of De Niro, I think people talk about the Raging Bull thing where he got in crazy shape and then they took, like, I don't know how much time off for him to, like, lose it all and get, like, fat for the other part of the film. So, you know, I think actors usually reference that as one of the, you know, physical transformations. But, for this, they wanted me to be, like, kind of big and massy and puffy, and I'm a guy who is, like, on his last, you know, I mean, I'm being told I can't play anymore, so they wanted that to be reflected in the physical aspect. And I think when I got involved in this, and I knew the scenes and, I was like, oh, I'm going to have my shirt off. I have these sex scenes. And I was like, I remember telling the director, I'm like, I'm going to get ripped. I'm going to have like this crazy, I'm going to have like an 18-pack, man. And, you know, watch out, here, you know, Jake Gyllenhaal. Here I come with this, like, you know, this is going to be like a body of steel. And the director goes, no, you're not. I go, what do you mean? He goes, no, you're going to have a gut. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you're going to have a gut. And no, he's like, no, you're on your way out. And he was right. So that was just like an actor vanity thing, you know, that I had. He was totally right. So I did steroids for the film, and worked out a lot and drank a ton of beer. And it took a while to lose that. Once we wrapped shooting, it took about a year to kind of lose that body, even maybe a little more. I mean, it was hard. It was tough. And, you know, and I was only doing the steroids sort of like sporadically here and there. Mm-hmm. I wasn't always on these cycles. But I did them. And that also added to, I think, the character for me as well, just being on them and knowing what that felt like. And everything does get bigger. Even your head gets bigger. Like a hat that normally might doesn't fit on your... Mm-hmm. Every single thing gets bigger. Yep.
Oh, my God.
It's kind of scary. It's very frightening, actually. But I did it, and it was wonderful. And, you know, it really helped achieve that physical, you know, I really wanted to be, I always describe this character Phil harding as a giant slab of meat, just it was like, like a Tony Soprano or whatever. So,
right.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted, and certainly being like giant and huge and massy like that was helped. I moved a lot differently. I didn't move the same way that I would normally move because, I weighed a lot more, and I was never like a big guy. I was always littler and skinny and stuff. So so it was different. It was interesting, and I couldn't fit in any of my regular clothes. I had to have all new clothes because, I weighed like 25, 30 more pounds. Yeah, I normally did. One of my friends, when he saw me while I was shooting, he was like, "Holy cow, your back is like massive. What the heck?" So, it was a lot. It was different.
I imagine it was a huge adjustment, obviously. And just so you know, folks, I'm not trying to make it sound too extreme because obviously when you see him in person versus that, it's not like he's packed on like huge amount of pounds, but it's very obvious that there's a change and a difference in him. And I just want to read the backdrop to those of you that don't know. So his character in the movie is, of course, same name, which is Phil, only Phil Harding. He's a baseball player who suddenly gets released, and then he finds himself just very lost and just largely struggling to solidify his direction because obviously his whole world is baseball, and then all of a sudden he walks into a room, his life is completely altered. So within this course of time that you watch him during the movie, he takes some very toxic turns while he's trying to balance his relationship with his father along with his relationship with his wife and his daughter. There's a lot of dynamics and a lot of different relationships and a lot of different strifes and struggles that you see in here as far as the movie goes. One of the things that I had asked you about, which I'd love for you to share, obviously, two iconic actors are in the movie outside of yourself. Yes, I just called you iconic. Wow, that was a pretty good one. Jeffrey Lewis.
By the way, I already put the check is in the mail, just so you know.
Really? See, look at this. See, now you just gave it up. I was so trying to be on the sly with that, and you got to race right in with that whole thing.
Yes.
So, Ernie Hudson, Jeffrey Lewis. We didn't get to talk about Ernie Hudson when I saw you. So one of the things I want to ask about Ernie, because people always ask about, one of the things I want to know about, because I'm friends with his son, but I've never met Ernie personally. So one of the things that I want to know is, sadly, he has a shorter part in your film, and I don't want to give it away, but the reality is he's only in it for a bit of time. And so I was curious about what was that like for you? Had you met him before? Did you know him before? And most importantly, he appears as a nice guy on screen, but I think I'd be frightened. Most of us would be frightened to meet him. He's a very overpowering, in a good way, sort of actor type. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Ernie's one of the sweetest, nicest guys. He's a really good friend of mine. I'm happy to be able to say that. And he's someone who's super supportive of me personally, and he likes me a lot. So it's pretty cool. Ernie is, to me, he's like one of the more underrated actors in Hollywood.
I agree.
He was a guy who had a studio career for a long time, like a legit career. I mean, he was doing like studio, I would say back in like the late 80s, early 90s, and this was even after the Ghostbusters stuff. I mean, he was doing, like The Hand That Rocks the Cradle and stuff like that. He was going studio movie to studio movie, and then he had Oz on HBO, and he was like, and so for me, he's amazing and versatile and just so fun and interesting to watch. And I just think everybody knows who he is, but I just feel like he's still underrated anyway. Like he should be, more known than he is. But at any rate, I knew him before. So that's part of how we got him into it, because I know the director was like thinking of some other actors for that role, and he knew I knew Ernie. He goes, "Would you mind asking Ernie? I really think he's the guy." And I said, "Sure." So I called him, and asked him, and he said, "Great, send me the script," and he liked it. And I put, Ernie and the producers in touch, and the producers and agents worked out the deal. And the next thing I know, I was in Iowa with Ernie, and we were shooting. So that was a lot of fun. That's incredible. A lot of fun. Yeah, it was a good time. It was a really good time. I feel very fortunate that I got to share the screen with him.
Oh, you betcha, as a matter of fact. Do you ever watch him on that show with Jane Fonda? Oh, my God, I absolutely love that show. He is so good on that show. Really good.
I
love that
I'm going to have to watch it. I
Definitely.
have not seen it, but I've heard other people talk about him on
It's
that
amazing,
show and how great he
absolutely.
is.
He's great, and he brings a very refreshing change to the film. You know, to the film, I'm okay, the TV show, because obviously Lily Tomlin is one personality, Jane Fonda is another. So, you know, him playing a love interest to Lily is just, it's a really smart casting. Truly, it really is, as a matter of fact. And since you, of course, maybe you should just forego the check you're going to give me and tell you what, just call Ernie up and say, listen, there's this radio show host that would die to interview him, and that's no joke. I would literally die to interview him. He's fab in the best way. Fabulous. And then when you get off the phone with him, just call Cher and let her know that I want to see her. Because, you know, Cher lives in California. Just saying.
I'm sure somehow and in some way Ernie knows her. He seems to know everybody. So
I know, right? It's like insane.
Most definitely, I'll ask Ernie to be on your show for sure.
You are so awesome, and you don't really have to do that. But I keep asking people all the time because I was like, the big question on my show for a year used to be, do you have Michael Madsen's cell phone number? Because I was on the mad hunt to get Michael on my show, and then I got him on the show. Yeah. So I was like, now I can't ask that question anymore. So I'm like, oh, wait, well, here's today's question, Phil, because I'm sure, Phil, you have Cher's cell phone number, right? Because, like, Cher is my number one interview, like, of all time that I could ever get, it would be Cher. So I'm sure you have her cell phone number, right? You'll just give it to me, and I can call her, and we'll get it set up.
Yes, I absolutely. I talk to Cher every day.
Do you really? Is she as fabulous as she appears to be?
She's amazing. You know, we talk about shoes.
Do you? And Bob Mackie clothes and your gays, because of course everybody who's gay loves Cher, and I love my gays. We all know this, of course. But no, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, Cher is just everything. I mean, next to Phil, of course, because Phil's iconic. Apparently, Phil's iconic. That's my word, iconic, for today. Back to the movie. Okay, so high and outside. So, you know, obviously, of course, one of the things that I want you to address specifically before I tell everybody why they should go see the movie, tell me one thing about this movie in terms of what you brought to the role that you're most proud of, and one thing that if you could change, if you go back to the film now and change your performance in some way, what would you do?
I would, well, the first one I'll say I would change nothing.
Nice.
You know what, the director, who also was one of the editors on the film, the other editor, John Cook, they're some of the best editors I've ever worked with in my life. They're the ones who made my performance amazing. They picked every single great, wonderful moment that could have been fixed. So I would not change anything. By the way, I'm saying goodbye to my brother and his girlfriend are leaving for the airport. I'm saying goodbye to my young little nephew.
Bye, brother.
Thanks,
Bye.
Donlon. Yeah, he's so cute. So he'll listen to this when he grows up. And
I'm sorry you're missing your family saying bye. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, it's totally fine. They came in for the screening, and they're heading back
yeah,
to
you
Denver.
told me.
Anyway,
that's so sweet. Okay, got it. Okay, so yes, we were curious about you. So you wouldn't change anything, so you're perfectly content with absolutely everything. Because sometimes actors will look after the fact and will be like, you know, if I would have one more take, if I would have, you know, could have done this or da 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 da. You know what I mean? In retrospect,
you know, one of the things when I was shooting the film, we did. He had this like Cassavetes style of doing the film. We would do really, really long takes. Sometimes, like there was one take we did, it was like 25 minutes long or something. And so I really had the opportunity to do everything. Like there was never a scene that I look at and I think, God, I held back. And believe me, I've done movies where I've done some takes and I'll regret it afterwards, and I'll think I shouldn't have tried that because it didn't work, and now they have it, and they might use it. And I think actors are really, well, I think the more you do it, the more you get protective of that, because you do a movie, and you're like, oh, my God, they actually used that take, because you're in the hands of maybe of a lesser director or a lesser editor, and you're like, oh, my gosh. You know, Ewald had the film in his head already, I think. I do know him and John were on set sort of like cutting it as it went along. So, and you know, and they're friends of mine, so I trusted them. So I got to really try everything, and I knew they would only use the best stuff. And they really, really did. So, you know, So I think favorite moment. Boy, favorite moment in the film. You know, it's just, again,
I know, right?
so hard because they really did. They were very economic in the editing of the film. Really economic. Like, it's like, I look at that movie and I think it's really lean. There was one critic who sort of like gave us a really wonderful glowing review that was sort of like felt some takes maybe went on a tad too long or something. I don't know. I watched this thing and I just think it's an exceptionally like lean movie. There's not a lot of fat on it. There's just what needs to be said is said, and that's it. But I'm pretty proud of this climactic scene between Jeff Lewis and myself, where we sort of have our moment finally in the film. The father and son sort of go at it. I'm pretty proud of that because it was. It was a hard scene for Jeff to do for personal reasons. He had a lot of kids. It was a hard scene for me to do because I was so good friends with Jeff, and I was really he told me I could really kind of like let go on it and go for it. And then that's what the director wanted me to do. Yuval did say, he's like, I want you to go for it. And I talked to Jeff, and he said, yeah, go ahead. And Jeff's not a young guy. And when you watch the scenes, I'm very physical with him. So it was tough. So I just find it as like two actors working who had a lot of trust with each other, so they could really go there. Very, very proud of. I'm proud of almost every moment. But that for sure. And then the stuff with Lindsey Hawn as well. Proud of those. Probably those two things are my favorite moments.
I'm going to give 7 reasons why, and that's the bare minimum, because obviously in the review there's more, so I'm not going to give the full review away. So to those of you that are listening in, first of all, if you want further information outside of what we're talking about, there's been a write-up in Chicago Tribune, I should say. Obviously, I know you appeared on WGN as well. Clearly, you're in Felix Magazine. Obviously, if you go onto the Internet, you're going to see a bunch of different places that this film has been talked about so far. But these are the 7 things off the top of my head that I want to talk about that at least stand out, or reasons why you say to yourself, okay, why should I get up and go to Chicago and I should see this movie? First of all, I told Phil when I met him, he has these very breathtaking eyes. Not everyone has that ability as an actor to be able to have these perfect eyes. He has beautiful eyes, and that translates on screen very well in this particular. Well, you know what I'm saying? In this particular role, it translates very well because some of the speaking, whether you know it or not, Phil, is done within your eyes. In fact, when you watch his character unfold, you will see the intensity in his eyes change. The way he looks at people, the way that he responds to people, the way that he reacts to people can be clearly seen through his eyes. That's one thing that stood out to me. Number 2, and we talked about this in person, there is a strangely unique and unusual combination of music that's put together for this film. You've got not just one genre, but various genres by various different people and very talented people. So the music is a gem to listen to. Number 3, you've got some very strong side actors, meaning the character who plays your wife as well as the character that plays the nurse for your father, the male actor. Beautiful performances, very, very strong and sizably good acting by both characters. That's number 3. Number 4, obviously, of course, you play the son, and of course, obviously, Jeffrey Lewis plays your father. That father-son dynamic, 4 words that I use actually in the review: cold and complex, but yet very, very solid and very sentimental in many ways. And that's kind of how I see the dynamic of both of you. So there's that. You've obviously got a lot of emotion and extremity as it relates to the lead characters as well. Both of you put in as much emotion and extreme emotion as you can, and that's not something that always translates on screen as well as it should. And in this is partly because of the acting and partly because of the director, and the director seems to deem it necessary. This is what's needed to get the point across, and he does it very well. Let's talk about Phil. Phil obviously plays Phil Harding, as I mentioned. There is just a slew of emotions, from anger to frustration to being lost to being self-indulgent, somewhat obsessive, and not to mention the fact he's just a downright punk. I mean, if you guys watch the first, in the beginning he's not so bad, but then you get to that point where I, as a woman, even I'm like, I'd bitch slap him. Like right now I'd be like, listen, bitch, pull your pants off, stop guilting people because he's good at that. He uses manipulation. He uses guilt. He's he's very into, I have one vision right now, I have one priority right now, and F the rest of the world. And as we talked about, one of the signs of a great actor, and Denzel Washington is my best example of this, is you can take a guy have you ever seen the movie not American Gangster, the one he won the Oscar for? What? Oh my God! The one where the Denzel Washington movie where he's with Ethan Hawke and he plays. What is the name of that movie?
Good stuff.
I can't remember the name of it.
I wish I knew. Yeah.
Oh my God! You're an actor. You should know this. In any case, here he is, and he is this. Oh, he's such a vile human being. And much worse than your character. And at the end, even in that end scene, there is always some part of us that was like, maybe he'll redeem himself. Maybe he's going to do the right thing. Maybe there's this. And so I'm not going to give it away, obviously. However, we hope. And the good part is that you actually had me, a person who was like, I have no effing idea where this guy's going, and saying to myself, yeah, there's this ounce of me that's like, yeah, just do it. Do the right thing. Like and he has a couple instances in the film, folks, where he gets an opportunity to try to redeem himself, and you have to come and see it to see if he actually does that or not. But just that whole ability to make me effectuate some kind of an emotion to where I'm like, yeah, he's not so bad after all. There's that. And, of course, we don't want to forget the obvious, which is, I'm not going to lie, and he's going to blush, but yes, it's true, folks. If you had a combination of these three, which is Johnny Depp, a younger Robert De Niro, and then you mixed in Ray Donovan, a.k.a. Liv Schreiber, you would have the real live Phil. So who doesn't want to watch somebody who looks like that on screen for 90 minutes? Just saying.
Thank you.
That's not in the review, although it probably should be.
Huge compliment.
So
those are all amazing actors. Wow, thank you.
And the check keeps getting bigger, doesn't it? Just kidding. Hold
on, let me transfer some funds over from my Roth IRA to.
I know, right? He's
now.
going broke.
Yeah.
The interview cost him, literally. Now, before I forget to read off all these various things, I don't want to forget to mention, we want to talk about Sons of Freedom and Walking with Herb. You've got two things coming up on the pike. So if you could just let folks know a bit about what you're doing upcoming in 2018 beyond this, please.
Yeah, shooting this new film. It's in October with Edward James Olmos. It's got George Lopez, Mary McDonnell, Michael McDonald as well, a New York actor. We got that coming up, and then Sons of Freedom, a film that I am attached to, but there's no start date yet. On that, and of course I have my show with Nick Pileggi that we hope gets put into production called Lords, and that's a period piece about the birth of machine politics in Chicago around 1893, and the politician as a gangster, and the first time the word gangster was used was to describe these politicians in Chicago. And those are the politics we have now. So those are sort of the three things right now. I've got I may be in New York soon. I've got a indie film that I'm attached to direct that I'm pretty excited about as well. So some good stuff. Good stuff on the horizon.
This is awesome.
Busy,
absolutely.
More. Yeah.
Well, and the reason that you guys are here, of course, is to find out that he does have one final screening in Chicago. To those of you that may not know, it is September 12th at 8 o'clock. It is at the Gene Siskel Film Center. Obviously, the name of the film is called High and Outside is the name of the film. We don't want to forget about that. You want to come and you want to see it because obviously he'll be there. It takes quite, and just coincidentally, my listening audience knows this, for me to give up going to New York to stay here, it's got to be pretty sizable. And I actually am not getting on a plane Wednesday. I'm going to see Phil instead of going to New York. And I could have been there all day in New York, but instead I decided to stay here. So when a woman loves something that much, she's willing to give it up to sit and watch the movie again, a second time. That should tell you something. That means obviously it's remotely sizable, to say the least. All right, now, I have a bunch of things to wrap up the show. First and foremost, just to let you know, because you haven't been on the show, about 2 hours after we get finished, the show is archived. So I'll send a copy off to you so that you can post it as well as to anybody else that wants to listen to it. It'll be on Blog Talk Radio till the end of time. I also upload my episodes to YouTube,
Wonderful.
so they'll be there. So people can go back and check it out on there. Usually most of the time people aren't off in the middle of the afternoon, so you'll get a lot of archive listens as far as that goes. You have never been on my show before, so obviously we always have surprises on my show, and I warned you of this, I think, when I saw you.
Oh.
So now we're at that surprise. We're at the
Wonderful.
surprise point. Some of these surprises you know already, which is, and this is more for the listening audience, just so you guys know, I have offered Phil the opportunity to be able to come to L.A. and to screen at my film festival. Obviously, he doesn't need my help per se, but clearly the L.A. audience, I think, should be able to see the film repeatedly. So even if he screens it somewhere else, I would love for him to come to the Vins on Fairfax, of course, November 10th to 12th. Squeeze that in your busy schedule and come and do a Q&A and show your film again so I can come and do it again. That would be number one. Number two, we've obviously talked about my setting up screenings in Chicago and Las Vegas and Canada and Wisconsin. Not Chicago, Wisconsin, Canada, Las Vegas, and Florida. I want to screen in 4 more places beyond that, if that's okay with the powers that be, which we've talked about. Number 3, obviously, of course, I'd like to read your review in person just because I want to see your reaction. And then I get an even bigger check. Just kidding. But no, obviously, I'm going to be reading that. The other thing is that since I last saw you, I wrote a character for you. That I'm hoping John Gallagher, and not only did I write the character, I gave it to my favorite director in New York City, John Gallagher, and I said, will you put him in a film? So I kind of sold you on the deal already. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Hopefully you're going to be
excited.
casting something. Wow. I'm, excited too, right? I like it when I get to surprise my audience. I'm like, oh, my God, that's wonderful. And, yeah, so that's it for the moment.
Wow,
on top
thank you.
I'm trying to think of something else. I'm sure there's something else, but I can't remember it, obviously. Oh, yes, and of course, obviously, folks, you already know that the feature article will be done and finished by the end of this month, and of course, it'll be out in all the various different pubs, and I'll go ahead and put that out on social media, and of course, send a copy to Phil, along with a copy to Sammy, so that she can see that as well. So I'm going to read off, first of all, I'll read off all the film's information, then I'll read off the ways to find you, and then the last thing we do on my show is I get to tell you what I think of you. Yeah. Okay.
Hey,
so
you know what? Wouldn't be the first time anyone's done that, so go for it.
Well, you're sitting down, right? So just make sure you're sitting down.
Yeah.
So here we go. I'm going to read off to you folks, the listening audience, all the various ways to find information on Phil and his film. First of all, again, it's called High and Outside. The website is www.highandoutside.com. On Facebook, it's High Outside. Instagram, High and Outside Movie. And on Twitter, that's at High and Out Movie. Now, as for Phil, his last name is spelled Donlon. Obviously, of course, not to be confused with Phil Harding, who's much more of an asshole than he is. He has an IMDb profile. He is, I want to say on LinkedIn, but he claims, see, because I did send you a connect request on there and you didn't answer. So I'm like, I don't think Phil's ever on LinkedIn, just so you know. He's on there, and it is actually him, but I don't know if he checks it that often. So I'm like, okay.
I lost my password for it.
Shocker. He's too busy.
Yeah,
He'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's on Instagram by his name, Phil Donlon, and, of course, Twitter at Phil Donlon 1, the number 1.
And by
There's
the way,
no other place to find you,
Instagram,
right?
By the way, yeah, the Instagram, it's Phil Donlon. So
okay.
Phil dot and then
Good point to make.
just so you know. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, got it. We want to definitely make that clarity. And before I forget, www.felixmag.co. That's the place where you guys can go ahead and read online. If you didn't get a chance to get a printed copy of the Felix magazine, please go ahead and check out www.felixmag.co. So I think that covers almost everything, every website, everything. So the last thing I get to do, as I always do, is I get to tell the audience what I think of you. And the reason that I do that is because most of the time they'll never get a chance to meet you, and I've had a chance to now meet you twice technically, and now really a third time on Wednesday. So these are my thoughts, and I'll elaborate much more in person, obviously. But for my listening audience, there are 4 reasons why you should follow this man's work. if you follow my show, you already know that in 49 years, one of the things I always wanted was to become involved in the Hollywood sector. I was in love. I had a huge love affair with movies and Hollywood, and I thought how exciting and wonderful it was. Well, as you have all followed my career, most of you already know that I have lost a lot of that magic and have found out that the realities of Hollywood weren't nearly as exciting as one would think. And every once in a while, just by luck, by chance, the universe or God or whomever throws my way an actor who befits and embodies what I believe a true Hollywood actor should be. And how lucky am I that this wonderful PR person came along and said, I want you to meet this guy named Phil. Little was I to know that he does in fact embody humility, honesty, hard work, passion for his craft. He has the most gentile and gentlemanly disposition about him. He's very respectful. He's very reverent. He is extremely studied. He is very well educated on what it takes to put a performance in front of you and make you mesmerized, make you want to know the character, make you want to love or hate a character. Again, I must say that anytime an actor presents an audience with the ability to feel or effectuate a form of emotion, I can't tell you how impressive or amazing or inspirational that is. The fact that you made an average writer, me, sit down and create a character that I know that you can play is obvious inspiration. It's not often these days that I get inspired because I'm getting old, but the reality is the one thing that I can leave my audience with that they want to know about you or want to follow your career is because you are an exceptional person and impressive on every level, personally and professionally. And I would recommend you to anyone that I know. And that's a very big compliment considering you've had 4 hours of my time. Well, and technically how many more because I'm coming there. But the reality is, folks, he's a stand-up guy in a world that's not very stand-up anymore. That's huge.
Well,
and not only that, his body of work is amazing. Go see the film. I mean, and if you can't get to Chicago, go to L.A. If you can't get to L.A., we'll come to one of these places. But the reality is, support him because he's worth supporting. He's a spectacular person. That's what I think of you.
Wow. I mean, I'm taking that all in. That is, I'm really just taking it in. This is, I thank you. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Very flattered. Thank you very, very much. I don't.
Wow.
I'm just taking it all in. I really, wow. Okay. Yeah. No, thank you.
Welcome to my world. There you go.
No, very, very, very flattered. I will say this. I do know that the filmmakers are looking for another theater in New York still. I mean, they're talking with a few. So if there's anybody out there in New York that wants to see High and Outside, and they either are involved in in running an art house theater or have some in somewhere, please get in touch with us, or if they want to get in touch with you and you can pass it along, whatever. I know they want to play New York, and they're flirting with some theaters, and they really want to do a run there too. So, just saying.
Yes. In fact,
there.
I know the person who owns a theater house. All you have to do is ask.
Great.
I have a friend who owns a
Perfect.
theater there. Look at this.
Right.
This is like an awesome.
We'll be talking
awesome.
After. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So the last question I have before I let you go is, pick a color. I have got every dress under the sun. I was even asking my followers. I'm like, what the hell do I wear to this thing on Wednesday? I'm like, I got black, I got blue, I got orange, I got red. I'm like, I can't pick a dress here. Just pick a color for me, randomly. I literally have to wear something Wednesday. Good choice. Very good choice. Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure.
So, yes. So, hopefully, now that I've interviewed you twice, I've held up my weight here, and I do hope that you are satisfied, and I do hope that I've done you justice in all seriousness, because I do try very hard. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to us.
Yeah, very welcome. This was a lovely, lovely interview, and I feel really grateful for your time and your attention on me and my film. I'm really, it's beyond words. I don't even know what to say.
Really?
So thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you have time to think about it.
Sure.
I think you're going to see me in 48 hours. In fact, exactly 48 hours or so. Yes. Yes, because now I'm not in New York. Remember, I'm here going to your training. Assuming I get tickets, by the way, which is... Well, I am excited, too. I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited. Yeah, and we don't want to forget about that. I still need tickets, though. So if you're going to talk to Sammy, just remind me or remind me to remind you, or let's make sure we get it taken care of so that I'm all set and ready. And I will bring the review and keep me posted, definitely. All right, we're going to let you go so I can go and actually eat lunch because I haven't done that yet. And then I have to get my kids and, do my thing. But we'll be talking before Wednesday. Thank you so much for this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No, you're
right,
welcome,
honey.
and thank you to all of your audience who listened and has listened or will be listening soon. Thank you so much, and I'll see you Wednesday.
All right, sounds good, dear. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Okay, bye-bye.
Isn't he amazing? Phil Donlon is the name. Again, it's www.highandoutside.com, Facebook, High Outside, Instagram, highandoutsidemovie.com, and Twitter, High and Out Movie. As far as for Phil, again, the last name is Donlon. He is on LinkedIn, IMDb, Twitter, which is at Phil Donlon1, and Instagram, which is Phil.Donlon. So again, huge thanks to Phil in terms of coming on the show. Again, one more time to Samantha at Jag Entertainment. You're the best. Thanks so much for getting us collaborated. www.felixmag.com as far as, or .co, I apologize, for Felix Magazine. And one quick reminder, I will be back on the air tomorrow. Looks like I have my show at... Let me just double check here because like an idiot, I don't have it in front of me. Marco will be on at 1:30 Central Stand tomorrow. Marco Varelli is a filmmaker from Las Vegas who's also an opera singer, and I was fortunate enough to show his movie, The Last Call, at Artists Live Film Festival this year. So please tune in tomorrow, 1:30 Central Standard Time. I am off. You guys have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.
It's the two megastars summer mashup, the awesome iPhone on the Rockstar Metro PCS network. Get the iPhone you've always wanted for $0 so you can jam without limits.
It's a hit. Get an iPhone SE on us when you switch. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Requires ported of number not currently active on T-Mobile network or on Metro PCS in past 90 days to an unlimited LTE plan. See store for details and terms and conditions.